Hello all, how are we doing? I hope we all are doing well. Yes. So today we are going to talk about the next session of this crop production and management. In the previous class I discussed about different agricultural processes or agricultural techniques and practices. So I discussed about the preparation of the soil or how the soil is prepared, then fertilizers that are used, fertilizers or manure, and then how do we irrigate the field, different methods of irrigation. So for those classes I'll provide the link in the description box so you can check it out over there. Now in today's class I'm going to talk about crop protection, then harvesting and threshing, storage and improving the crop production. Okay, so when I say crop protection, see, the crops, they need to be protected by two things majorly. One is the weeds. Yes, crop protection. So majorly they need to be protected by weeds and pests. Right? Now what are weeds? They are the unwanted plants. Yes, for example, I have planted wheat crop in my field, and if something other, some grass or something else grows in the plant, would I like that? No, I will not like that, right? So that is, those grasses, they are unwanted plant for me, right? So the grass can be a weed in a field of wheat. Okay. Now there are certain pests which damage our crops. So the pests, they can be different insects like grasshoppers, then rats, etc., rodents. Insects and rodents, they all come under pests. Insects and rodents. Right? Now, first we will talk about this weeds. How do we remove these weeds? See, the removal of weeds is called as weedicide. Sorry. The removal of weeds is called as weeding. This is called as weeding, and this weeding is done in two methods, using two methods. One is the physical method and second is the chemical method. So physical method, what it involves is, like we use trowel or harrow, right? Harrow is a tool which has a comb like structure. So weeding, removal of the weeds through manually, it becomes convenient using the harrow. Okay, so this is the physical way of removing the weeds. Now there is chemical method also of removing the weeds. Now in chemical method, what is done is we use some chemical substances, and those chemical substances are called as weedicides. Okay, some weedicides are there. For example, 2,4-D. I am giving you the example here. Some weedicides are 2,4-D. Now what is this 2,4-D? This is 2,4-dichlorophenoxyacetic acid. Yes. So this is an example of weedicide. Okay. One more weedicide is there. I'll write that as well here. So the other weedicide is 2-methyl 4-chloro 1-phenoxyacetic acid. Acetic acid. This is also called as MCPA. Okay. So these are certain weedicides, certain examples of weedicides which are used for the removal of the weeds. Okay. Now, Other than this, there is one more method for removal of weeds. That is, if we if we plant sunflower or soybean, that is planting sunflower or soybean plants in the field. So this is done along with our main crop, right? Soybean and sunflower plants, they are also planted along with the main crop. So how does this help in preventing the weeds? Basically what happens that these plants, they produce some toxic substances, right? Some toxins. And these toxins, they prevent the growth of the weeds, okay? So they prevent the growth of the weeds, and thus the weeds do not grow. So there are three ways. One is like this, planting such plants like sunflower or soybean, and second is chemical method, that is weedicides, right? And third is manual way or physical method, which is trowel and harrow, using trowel or harrow. Okay, so this is how we can control the weeds. Now next comes is controlling the pests. So for controlling pest, what we do is we use certain chemical substances for that, okay, for controlling the pest. Now what the pests are? Pests, they are unwanted insects and rodents which damage the crop, okay? Either they eat or damage the crop. So somehow they are damaging our crop. Okay. Now these pests, they can be either insects and they can be rodents, right? Apart from these, there are certain, bacteria, fungi and virus also, which cause the diseases. Like, some fungal diseases can be rust of wheat. Yes. Some bacterial diseases, they can be, wilting. Right? So in wilting, what happens is, the xylem tissues which conduct water, they are damaged by the bacteria, right? The xylem tissues, they are damaged by the bacteria, or they are blocked by the bacteria, right? So as they are blocked by the bacteria, then what happens? Conduction of water, because xylem helps in conduction of water. So the conduction of water is hampered, and thus ultimately the plant dies. Okay. So this is how wilting affects. This is again, for this we need some like pesticides. Okay. Now rodenticides, for example, to prevent the rats and all those, because they also can eat the crop, they also can damage the crop, we use this rodenticide. So for insects we use insecticide, and for rodents we use rodenticides. Okay. Now certain insecticides, example for insecticides, BHC. BHC is benzene hexachloride. Let me confirm. Yes, BHC is benzene hexachloride. So this is a chemical which is also called as gamexine, right? So this is insecticide. And rodenticides, they are again some chemicals which prevent the rodents from coming into the fields and eating the crop away. Okay, so this is how the crops are protected from the weeds and the pests. Okay, now let's talk about after we have protected the crops, then comes harvesting of the crop. So harvesting, what is harvesting? Harvesting means cutting and gathering the crops. Okay, so for harvesting, after the crop is harvested, what is done is the seed has to be, or the grain has to be removed from the seed cover. So for that, threshing is done, right? So this threshing, it can be done manually or by using machine. So what that machine is called as, that is called as harvester, right? And for threshing also there is thresher used. Thresher is also a machine. Oh, I'm sorry. So harvesting only is done through machine, and that is called as thresher. Yes. Now manually, how is it done? The crop is beaten, right? Whatever has been harvested, that is beaten. So on beating, what happens, that the seed and the chaff is separated, right? Or the seed and the seed cover is separated, and then winnowing is done. Right? What is winnowing? Using the wind, crops, the chaff is separated at one place and the seeds are separated at one place, right? So that is winnowing. That is again the manual way. Okay. Now next, threshers. Threshers, as I said, that it is the machine way, or using the machine for separating the grain from the chaff. So for that, thresher is used. Now there is one more thing that is used that reduces time, and that is combine. So along with the thresher, this combine is along with the harvester. Along with the harvester, this combine is used, right? So while harvesting the crop only, this combine is used. Okay, this is again a kind of machine that is used for harvesting. Now after we have protected our crops, we have harvested and we have separated the grains. Now the grains, they need to be stored. Why they need to be stored? Well, because again there are chances that some bacteria or some other diseases can be caused, because the grain, it contains moisture. So what happens, that the grain is sun dried. Yes, it is dried in the sun and then it is stored. So sometimes it is stored in the gunny bags, right? Or sometimes it is stored in the silos. These silos, they are huge metal containers in which the grains are stored. Okay. Now as we have stored the grains, now for further, again we'll use those seeds, right, for the crops. So what do we need to do is, the crop production has to be improved. For that improved crop production, we need good seeds, right? Apart from using good seeds, there are certain other methods of improving the crop production. So what it is, mention in the comments what can be the ways of improving the crop production. Yes, it can be using good fertilizers. Yes, proper irrigation. Yes, and third can be good seed. Yes, good seed selection. So proper seed selection. Now seeds, they can be improved also. Yes, so how can they be improved? For that, plant breeding is done. Yes, what is plant breeding? Plant breeding is that two separate plants are taken and Suppose plant A and plant B. Plant A has some good characteristics and plant B has some good characteristics. So we breed these plants and the good characteristics, they are taken in the plant, and that is genetic modification of the plant. The genes of the plant are modified so that those good characteristics, they can continue, they can be inherited further, right? They can come into the offspring or the seed, like whatever is being produced. So they can come in the offspring plant. Okay, so that is plant breeding. Now this method is also called as hybridization. Yes, so what is hybridization? So hybridization is a method in which the desired quality of the parent plant is incorporated into the offspring plant. In the offspring. Okay. So these are certain ways by which we can improve the crop production. And why this improvement in the crop production is required? Because population is growing day by day, and to meet the population, to meet the demand of the growing population, we need to improve our crop production as well. Okay, so crop production has to be managed. Okay, and by this the chapter is over. If there is anything that you have to understand, you have to ask, please mention it in the comments. I'll certainly reply to your queries, and the link for the previous 2 sessions of this chapter I'll provide in the description box. In the next class we are going to start with the lesson 2, that is microbes, friend or foe, or microorganisms, friend or foe. So till then, happy learning, enjoy.